Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about age gap relationships.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I have some of my own notes, and then I found this really cool research from date psychology.
Date psychology.
Yeah, have you heard of it?
I have, yeah. It's that blog that kind of looks at dating through like an evolutionary lens, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to be looking at all that stuff today and hopefully busting some myths about age gaps in relationships.
Sounds fun. I'm in.
Awesome. So, have you ever heard that, like, older women are the ones who, like, really disapprove of age gap relationships?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like it's a competition thing or something.
Right. It's like they see younger women dating older men and they think it's a threat.
Exactly. They think
You
it's
know?
like shrinking their own dating pool.
Yeah, exactly. And I even saw this TikTok cartoon, like one of those Ho Math ones.
Oh, yeah, I love those.
Me too.
Yeah.
And it was basically saying that exact thing, like older women see it as a threat. So that's kind of a common belief. But date psychology actually did a study with over 650 people.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah. And they asked people to rate their approval of different age gaps.
Like how big of an age gap?
Yeah, like 5 years, 10 years, all the way up to 20 years.
Okay, makes sense.
And they also measured how much people felt like they were competing for partners.
Like how competitive they were in the dating scene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Researchers call that intrasexual competition.
Catchy.
So what do you think they found? Did the study back up that whole older women more disapproval thing?
I don't know, honestly. I kind of feel like it might be true.
Well, you'd be wrong.
Really?
Yeah, there was zero correlation between a woman's age and how much she disapproved of age gap relationships.
So like a woman in her 50s was just as likely to approve as someone in their 20s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
I totally thought that older women would be way more disapproving.
Me too. It's blowing my mind.
And it gets even crazier. The study also found that older men were actually more approving of age gap relationships than younger men.
Wait, what? Seriously?
Yeah, I know, right? It's a total twist.
So maybe it's the younger guys who are feeling the pressure.
That's what I was thinking. Like maybe they see older men dating younger women as a threat.
Yeah, like from an evolutionary standpoint.
Right. There's always that talk about men in competition for mates in evolutionary psychology.
Exactly. Makes you think, huh?
Definitely.
Yeah.
But even though we busted that myth about older women, the study did find one thing that was consistent.
What's that?
Women overall rated age gap relationships more negatively than men.
Across the board.
Yep, no matter what their own age was.
Interesting. So it's not just about individual competition then.
Right. It seems like there's something bigger going on. Like maybe society as a whole disapproves of age gap relationships.
Yeah, like it's almost taboo or something.
Right. So how big was the difference between men and women in the study?
It was pretty significant, especially when you looked at the larger age gaps. Like for a 20-year difference, the disapproval rates were way higher for women than men.
Wow. That's pretty huge.
Yeah.
So we've busted the myth about older women, but now we have this whole societal disapproval thing to unpack.
Right. Where do we even start with that?
Good question. I'd
Yeah.
love to dive into that next time.
I think we have to think about like where these ideas even come from, about age gap relationships.
Yeah, that's true. It's not like they just magically appear.
Right. So where do they come from?
Well, I mean, could it be things like traditional gender roles or
Yeah.
cultural expectations?
Yeah, I think those definitely play a role. And don't forget, we've been talking about relationships where the man is older.
Right, which has been the more like traditional setup.
Exactly. It's like the more accepted version historically.
True. But I'm kind of curious about if that's changing. Like, are younger generations more open to age gaps?
That's a good question. Actually, the study didn't really look at that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it would be interesting to see research on like millennials and Gen Z and their views.
For sure.
Ugh.
Like, are they less bothered by the age difference itself? Or is it more about the power dynamics?
Power dynamics. Yeah, that's a good point.
It makes me think about how the media portrays these relationships. Like, you never really see positive examples.
You're right. It's always like the creepy older dude or some kind of imbalance of power.
Exactly. And that probably just reinforces the negative stereotypes.
Absolutely. We see these limited portrayals and it shapes how we think about age gap relationships.
Yeah, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Totally. We need more stories that show like the full range of what these relationships can be.
I agree. It's like people forget that every relationship is unique, no
Right.
matter what the age difference is.
Right. Judging them solely on that one factor ignores everything else.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to discuss this topic. It challenges our assumptions.
Definitely. It makes us look beyond those surface judgments and consider the individual dynamics.
Okay, so if we take a step back,
Mhm.
What's the main takeaway for our listeners? Like, what do we really want them to understand?
Well, I think the biggest thing is like remembering that older women aren't automatically against age gap relationships.
Right. It's just not that simple.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's way more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about those societal pressures, you know?
Definitely. Like all those ideas about what's appropriate when it comes to relationships,
Exactly. Like, those expectations really affect how we see things,
for sure. And how we judge other people's relationships.
which isn't cool.
Hmm.
Like, who are we to say what works for someone else?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's their life. And you know what made me think about this? Remember that comment on the date psychology blog?
Which one?
The one that asked about relationships where the woman is older?
Oh, yeah. The whole toy boy thing.
Right. That's a whole other angle to consider.
Yeah. Is the disapproval just as bad when the age gap is flipped?
That's a good question. And honestly, the study didn't really cover that.
So there's even more to unpack.
Definitely.
Yeah.
There's still so much we don't know about these relationships.
I feel like this deep dive has just opened up more questions than answers.
That's kind of the point, though, right? We want to get people thinking.
Yeah. Make them question their assumptions.
Exactly. So next time you see an age gap relationship, maybe you'll pause before jumping to conclusions.
Love it. So before we wrap up, any final thoughts for our listeners who are now totally fascinated by age gaps?
Just be curious, If you're making assumptions about a relationship, ask yourself where those assumptions are coming from.
Ooh, good point. Are they from personal experience
Hmm.
or what you've seen in the media or maybe those societal norms we were talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly. It's all about being aware of your own biases.
Yeah, and maybe by being more aware, we can start to shift the conversation about age gaps.
Make it more understanding and accepting.
Totally, love in all its forms, right?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. Well, on that note, we'll let you all keep pondering these ideas. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
See ya.
And until next time, stay curious.